Hey everybody, it's Michael from Wahoo Comics here with another haul and speculation video. And as usual, I've got a bunch of books I'm looking forward to showing you, starting off with this one, Mark Spector, Moon Knight #1. Now, if you've been paying attention to my channel at all, you know that I'm a big advocate of starting to pick up books from the horror corner of the Marvel Universe. Seems like they're really developing that part of their movie universe, the MCU. Of course, there's a Moon Knight Disney Plus series coming out next year. And next year or two, there's not a release date. There's a Blade movie coming out. And so I think now is the time to start thinking about picking up some of those keys, because as these characters are introduced, of course, the value of these books are gonna go up quite a bit. And in fact, a lot of the books from Moon Knight's first solo series have already been climbing in value a lot. And so I think people now are starting to look at this second solo series that he has as a way to find more budget-friendly options to invest in. And most of the books I'm going to show you today, I think, are very budget-friendly. Most I picked up for just a couple of bucks. A few like this one were closer to 10. I think I got this one for about $8. But I think are good to consider investing in, and also just cool to add to your collection. And that's one of the good things about budget picks. You know, even if they don't pan out, most of the books are still cool, have some first appearance or something like that. And so here, of course, is issue #1 of the second solo series. It's got an awesome cover. I don't know how Marvel's done it, but it seems like they always get these awesome artists to draw Moon Knight covers. I love most all of them. And so people are always, of course, excited about picking up #1 issues. This also contains the first appearance of a character named Chloe Tran. So who knows if she shows up in the series, and this book will really jump. But regardless, it's the first #1 issue in the second solo series, and I think is good to pick up for that reason. And then another book from that series that I am a big fan of is this one, Moon Knight #4, and this contains the first appearance of Midnight. And the reason that I'm such a big fan of this is that there's a character or an actor that's been cast in the upcoming Moon Knight series, and there's a lot of thought that it's going to be a character named the Midnight Man. Now, this character debuted in the first solo series in Moon Knight #3, and that book over the past few months has gone from being like a $2 or $3 book to a $50 book. Well, in the comic books, that character ends up dying after just an issue or two, and then he's kind of nowhere to be found. But in this issue, his son appears, who takes the name Midnight, and first he starts off as an antagonist of Moon Knight, but then he becomes his sidekick, and then later on, through a series of circumstances, he becomes his enemy again. And I think that would be like a really cool storyline to eventually develop in a Moon Knight cinematic universe. And maybe they're setting it up to, okay, we're gonna have Midnight Man in this first series, and he'll end up dying like he did in the comics. Then maybe we'll introduce his son, and then in another series or movie that comes up, he would debut. And I think that's just an awesome storyline. A guy that starts off as an enemy, but then basically becomes the Robin to Moon Knight's Batman, but then becomes his enemy again. There are obviously just so many twists and turns with that idea that I think it would make for an entertaining storyline. And so, especially with the thought that Midnight Man might be cast already, I think there's a good chance Midnight could show up at some point. A lot of these books, these budget books, aren't things that I'm thinking, necessarily in the next 6 months are going to explode. But if you're looking at like something I can hold on for 2 or 3 years, and again, even if nothing shows up, it's a cool part of the Moon Knight story, this character Midnight, and so it's just neat to have his first appearance anyway. Also, speaking of potential villains that could be cool, I've got Moon Knight #35, which is the first appearance of Randall Spector, Mark Spector's brother, and then #36, where he's revealed as Shadow Knight. And there has been, again, there's obviously lots of rumors about who's going to be the bad guy in the Moon Knight series, but some think it could be that character. And again, that's just a really interesting storyline that you could have. You have his brother in, and a big twist is all of a sudden the brother is a bad guy in this other character. I mean, those are things that I think would just make for really entertaining television. and especially the casual viewer who's watching it and doesn't expect, oh man, his brother's a bad guy. Yeah, I just think those that just seems like it makes sense to be a good storyline. So at some point I could see that character being introduced, and I also just love this character. I always love, or this cover. I love covers where the figures interact with like the title, and so you have this cool Punisher shooting through the Moon Knight title, and so I just like that for that reason. And then also one going back a few issues, I also have Moon Knight, Mark Spector Moon Knight number 25, which is the first time Moon Knight and Ghost Rider team up. And if you've been paying attention to the comic market at all, you'll know these first team ups are things that are starting to gain value. And so I think there's a lot of rumors that Ghost Rider will show up potentially in the Doctor Strange movie, and that they're building towards the Midnight Suns, which is kind of like the Avengers of the horror corner of the Marvel Universe. And I really believe, I don't know how soon it'll come, but that's where Marvel is headed. And so speaking of that, with Midnight Suns, I also picked up a few Ghost Rider books. Here's Ghost Rider number 2, which contains the first appearance of a villain named Blackout. And there's also rumors that Blackout could be the villain in a Midnight Suns TV show. Again, nothing confirmed, but there's a lot of people who are talking about that. And this is another one, you probably can't get it for $2 anymore, but you can probably get it for 10. And if this character ever shows up, this book jumps to 50. If not, you still have this big character in the Ghost Rider mythology that's in your collection and need to have. And then Ghost Rider number 28 and Ghost Rider number 31, which contains the first cameo appearance of that Midnight Suns team and the first full appearance of that Midnight Suns team. Now, right now, the market seems to care about issue 28 the most. That's the one that has selling for the most. But either of these, I think, are great books to pick up if you can find them for a good price, and if you're, especially excited about a potential Midnight Suns team coming out. Now, something interesting, both of these books originally were polybagged. These 2 copies I picked up are not polybagged. Whoever owned them had opened them and read the story. And I'm really interested how the market's going to look at these kind of books going forward. Right now, I think those that are still in their polybag are considered to be more valuable because they're less touched. But if you send these kind of books in to get graded, then CGC pulls them out of the poly bags to encase them. And so if you've got a graded copy, there's no way it's in a poly bag. And so are people going to move away from caring about poly bags or not? I'm curious, what do you think? If you had a choice to buy this in a poly bag or not in a poly bag, does that matter to you? I'm still trying to think of what I feel about that. Like, do I care? Do I care that this is not in a poly bag, or do I think if Midnight Suns show up, this book's going to go crazy anyway? All right. Well, these are the only books that I have in the technical, what I would say, the horror corner of the Marvel Universe. But I also picked up some Spider-Man keys that I think are still kind of on theme. For instance, Amazing Spider-Man 410. And this is also one that you're not going to find probably for a couple of bucks. But it's a really cool cover. And it's the debut of Spider-Carnage, which is when Ben Reilly, Spider-Man's clone, ends up getting infected. I don't know if that's the right word, with the Carnage symbiote. And if there's any part of Spider-Man that is horror, then it is certainly the Carnage Venom part of his story and his mythology. And so I think this is a really cool book that I've been looking for a little bit, that I was finally able to find what I think is a good price. And then keeping on with some Spider-Man-ish horror, I have Web of Spider-Man 86, which is the first appearance of the Demogoblin. It's like this demon hobgoblin that came out of the regular hobgoblin. A cool book to pick up. And though it's not technically a Spider-Man title, again, Venom is kind of part of what I would call Spider-Man horror. And I said this is Venom Lethal Protector number 5, which contains the first full appearance of Phage, Riot, Agony, and Lasher, who are their symbiotes, and have been some of them have been in the Venom movies. Some of them may be more as they potentially introduce symbiotes in those movies. So I've got number 4, which was the first appearance of Scream, and I have number 1 also. I got those as a kid, and now I'm excited to have number 5 here. Going back to Ben Reilly, another Ben Reilly book, Spider-Man number 51. This is when Ben Reilly, for the first time, reveals his identity. There's thoughts that Ben Reilly might be in the Into the Spider-Verse animated movies at some point. So investing in his character or the clones or things that you could consider doing right now. Another book that just has personal significance to me is Spectacular Spider-Man 189. Back when I first started making videos a few months ago, you might remember I got Amazing Spider-Man 365, which was part of this 30th anniversary thing that happened in all the 4 Spider titles that came out sometime in the 90s. And I picked up 2 of them as a kid, but they were I was priced out of picking out the last 2 because of these hologram double-sized covers. I wasn't able to get those other 2, and so finally as an adult, now that I have a little bit more money, I now have completed my collection of 30th anniversary hologram covers with this one, the Spectacular Spider-Man 189. I don't think this is a great one to be investing in necessarily, but I'm just happy to have it as a fan, as a completionist. And yeah, it is neat. These hologram covers are pretty cool to look at. And that brings me then to my sleeper of the month. And going back to horror, I have Blade number 1. And this is the first issue in his second solo series. So I've already picked up, if you've seen my videos, a couple of the first issues of his first solo series, which I think is a great thing to be picking up right now. But I also think this is a decent pickup, especially because this was a pretty low print run, and so it's pretty scarce, especially in high grade. And so if you're a fan of Blade and you can't find the first solo series at a decent price, which is getting harder and harder to do, then maybe think about picking up this first issue of the second solo series. So that's my sleeper of the week, if you can pick it up. Then that brings me to the question of the week. Of course, we talked a lot about horror today. I'm curious, who is your favorite horror character? It's kind of a fitting time. We just had Halloween a few days ago, so we've all been thinking about horror a little bit anyway. But who is your favorite horror character in Marvel or Image or DC, whatever in comics? Definitely for me, Moon Knight is number 1. I love just his design, his looks, his attitude. It's just really interesting, with his multiple personalities, balancing those. By far, Moon Knight is my favorite. So I'm really looking forward to this Moon Knight series coming up. But who do you like? Do you like Moon Knight? Do you like Blade? Do you like Swamp Thing? Do you like characters in Sandman from Vertigo? Do you like Spawn? Who is it? Let me know in the comments, or let me know anything else in the comments. Books you think we should be picking up, or things you have picked up that you're excited about. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, it'd be a big help if you do so. We're still getting closer and closer to 100. So consider doing that, please. Like the video. Again, make a comment. I hope you enjoyed it and look forward to doing the next one.